but Dan Patrick talking earlier today about the information he's obtained regarding the offer that was made by the Chicago Bears to potentially acquire quarterback Russell Wilson from the Seattle Seahawks. 3 first-round picks, third-round pick, and 2 starters. Now, we don't know which 2 starters they're talking about. Once they restructured Khalil Mack's contract, I assume Mack was out of any package, and maybe the ship sailed on any potential deal at that point. That was a few days ago. But, Miles, the problem with 3 first-round picks, it's where they are. Something Peter King pointed out yesterday. The Bears are at number 20. If you're at number 5 or higher, it's a much more valuable pick. And if the Bears have Russell Wilson, chances are next year the pick is going to be 20 or lower for the Bears. So 3 picks in that range for Russell Wilson, plus a third-round pick, plus a couple of players that we don't even know who they are. I can understand why the Seahawks ultimately said no thanks.
Oh, yeah, me too, especially given the fact that the Bears have that pick that's a 20 this year. Look, you can't say that you're going to trade Russell Wilson and then not have any kind of viable plan for quarterback going forward. I think if this were a team that were in the top 5 and they were to say, all right, we'll give you 3 first-round picks, then that's a little bit of a different story, because I think at least the consensus at this point is that there are 4 to 5 guys who could be franchise quarterbacks that could come in those first few picks in the first round. So from that perspective, it makes total sense to me that Seattle would say, I think we can still work things out here with Russell Wilson, and Bears, you got to kick rocks and go sign Andy Dalton.
Yeah, and the question now becomes, before we get to that, so I was on The Score in Chicago. I do a Tuesday thing and a Wednesday thing there every week. And the question came up as to why the Bears would leak this. And I'm not sure the Bears leaked it. And I don't want to start speculating on who Dan's sources may have been, but Russell Wilson was on his show 6 weeks ago, and that lit the fuse for all these conversations. So maybe he got it from Wilson. Maybe he got it from someone close to Wilson. I don't know, and I don't care. But from the Bears' perspective, to the extent that the report from the Chicago Tribune was that the Bears were going to go all in to try to get Russell Wilson, this isn't exactly going all in to try to get Russell Wilson. This is far from Herschel Walker. And again, if you're Russell Wilson, you don't want to go to a team that is given the keys to the franchise to the Seahawks in order to get Russell Wilson. You don't want Russell Wilson to be the next guy in the Patrick Mahomes meme from last week where it's just Wilson against 11 players on defense. But that doesn't strike me as going all in to get Russell Wilson. And if the Bears leaked it, I don't know what they were trying to prove by leaking it, Myles.
Well, what would strike you as going all in for Wilson then? I mean, would it be basically an entire draft? Just I'm pushing all my chips into the middle? 2 drafts? What do you think that would be?
Well, remember the Ricky Williams trade from 1999, back when you were probably 2. And I'm probably fairly close to being accurate with that. The Saints gave up an entire draft plus another first rounder just to move up a few spots to get Ricky Williams. So, look, I don't know. Giving up a full draft, I don't know what that really means by way of value. Symbolically, it's significant. But once you get past round 3, who cares, right? Now, you're giving up lottery tickets, and you never know when that lottery ticket is going to end up being a huge winner. But multiple first-round picks, I think 4 first-round picks plus a starting quarterback. Like if the Jets would show up with the 2 picks this year, the 2 picks next year, and Sam Darnold, because the Jets hold Seattle's first-round picks in 2021 and 22 from the Jamal Adams trade, that would, to me, be wow. But the Bears don't have the ability to do that. I think you have to – I just don't think the Bears can get there from where they start. Khalil Mack would have had to have been part of it. The 3 first-round picks, maybe 3 second-round picks to get to the point where you get the Seahawks' attention and make it worth their while, especially because of the fact, again, that they're at number 20 this year, and chances are they're going to be at 20 or lower in future years if they have Russell Wilson. So I just don't think the Bears were ever going to be able to do it. And I don't know that it benefits them to put out there what they ultimately offered, especially the day after they agreed to terms with Andy Dalton. I tend to think this comes from Wilson's camp, and it's aimed at sending a message to one of these other teams. Because I do think, Myles, even though Mark Rodgers, the agent for Russell Wilson, identified only the Bears, Cowboys, Saints, Raiders. I think there's other teams he's got in his pocket that Russell Wilson would take a trade to. And maybe this was just aimed at pulling the cord on the lawnmower to see if one of these other teams will get it done, whether it's the Panthers with the 8th pick, the Dolphins with the 3rd pick, or the Jets with the 2nd pick.
Well, I think that there has to be some other contingency plan with these other teams, right? Because at this point, the 4 teams that were on that list, the Raiders, the Cowboys, the Bears, and the last team, the Saints, all of those guys seem to at least have some sort of quarterback solution in place, with perhaps the exception of the Raiders, where I think if they really wanted to get something done, then maybe they could try, and at least they would have Derek Carr to send back to Seattle, and he's a viable quarterback. And maybe that those picks that would ostensibly be in the 20s or lower, then you'd be okay as long as you have that QB already in place. So that's something where if Russell Wilson really wants to get out, and the Raiders say we really want this guy to be our QB, then maybe that could make it work. But I think you're right to bring up somebody like the Panthers too, because they seem very hell-bent on getting a franchise quarterback this offseason. And obviously the reports today have been that they are singularly focused on getting Deshaun Watson. But I think if Russell Wilson were to become available to them, especially because Scott Fitterer came from the Seattle organization, that's not something that they would turn their nose up at, because obviously Russell Wilson has been so consistent for so long, Mike, that he is somebody that should be a franchise quarterback and that anybody should probably want if they don't have one already.
I'm fascinated by the possibility that Scott Fitterer doesn't want Russell Wilson because he knows what he's buying with Russell Wilson, because he's been in Seattle and he knows what Russell wants, both from a football standpoint and from a financial standpoint. Russell Wilson likes to break the bank every chance he gets. That's one of the benefits of having an agent who has only one client. I've said this before. Mark Rodgers is not burdened by the realities of broader relationships with general managers for other clients, because if you reach for too much with one guy, you potentially piss people off who otherwise can give some of your other guys jobs. Pick this guy over that guy. You get an opportunity. We have a good relationship with you, so we're going to give you a break here. You took care of us on this. We're going to help you out. That's how the sausage gets made. Mark Rodgers doesn't have to play that game because Russell Wilson's his only client, and Fitterer may be thinking, I don't want to have to negotiate with Mark Rodgers, because when you trade a player, you're getting the player. You're getting everything. You're inheriting whatever problems the Seahawks have. And if you're not going to solve the problems the Seahawks have with Wilson, they're your problems now. And you got him under contract for 3 more years. And regardless of whether or not he's happy with his role and his influence and the offense running through him, regardless of all of that, he's going to want $45 million a year or whatever the top of the market is when 2023 rolls around. So that may be one of the reasons why when we hear the reports about the Panthers and Deshaun Watson, it's just Deshaun Watson and not Russell Wilson.
Well, that's a good point. And I think the other part of that is when you say that Mark Rodgers only has that one client, that's probably why he's more comfortable going on the record and saying, as Russell Wilson's agent, here are the 4 teams that this guy would be interested in going to, because he's not as concerned about the other clients that could possibly be on those other teams. I mean, look, when you're talking about the Raiders and Russell Wilson being interested in going to the Raiders, Derek Carr is already there. Derek Carr has helped lead a team to the playoffs already, and albeit that was in 2016, but it's not like Derek Carr is not an established quarterback for Las Vegas. So I think that encapsulates so much of what's going on with this Russell Wilson situation, because Russell Wilson is the quarterback. He wants a certain amount of power. He wants his offensive line to get better. He wants to make sure that he has some sort of influence over what the scheme is going to be. And it remains to be seen if, when they actually give him the keys, that he can really consistently be the type of offensive threat that you would expect a quarterback who has that much power to be.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And you've got to be ready to make him your Patrick Mahomes. That's what he's looking for. And if someone doesn't make the Seahawks an offer they won't refuse, the Seahawks have to figure out a way to focus on getting the most out of this year. Now, look, Russell Wilson supposedly can compartmentalize and he'll deal with it and he'll stay in Seattle and he'll make the most of it. But it doesn't mean he's as happy as he can be, and it doesn't mean he's going to stay there long term. And I heard not long after he signed his last contract in Seattle that this is his last contract in Seattle.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.